Adesanya was talking to Helwani, and he was just giving his thoughts that, in his opinion, no, a fight with him and Jon Jones is not dead. And Adesanya is completely right. But there's still a way that you have to go about that, right? As Jon Jones is dismissing you because you lost, and you're trying to get to Jon even though you lost. There's just a little bit of a friction. However, Adesanya is the one that's right. And I've heard a lot of other people say Adesanya versus Jones is dead. We as people tend to go to an automatic default when attempting to make a fight, which sounds something like this. Two guys get on a roll, two guys build towards one another, and then all of a sudden the fight happens. There's fights that happen often for other reasons than that natural build, boilerplate default. Fights happen from negative. They don't just put winners versus winners by policy. They put guys who lose against guys who lose by policy. I mean, just to share for you, there's multiple ways to go get a fight. Jon Jones slides up to heavyweight and gets stomped out. I mean, he goes up there and gets his ass whipped. All of a sudden, the fight makes a lot more sense. It's two guys that lost. I only offer you that by example. Jon Jones decides over a period of time he would like to return to light heavyweight. May not have something to do with Adesanya. May have something to do with Jan Blachowicz, just for example. But if Jon returns, and as I see it, the biggest thing keeping them apart is not that Adesanya lost to Blachowicz, is that Jon is now a heavyweight and Adesanya is a middleweight. As I see it, the biggest problem they have is just the weight. So just imagine a scenario where Jon Jones comes back down to 205. Now, it would not matter how Jon did, whether he won or lost. If he lost, then obviously you see where nobody's going to complain about him and Adesanya, but Adesanya losing to Blachowicz is a very short-term pain. It's an extremely short term. The next time you see Adesanya, you will be seeing him with a 12-pound gold belt over his shoulder in a marquee fight for a world title, by the way, because that's what he is. He is the world champion. I only bring that to you because it's just a very short term, and I've heard people talk about, and you want to remember these people. You want to remember who they are. Don't come out and judge them. Don't make them feel bad, but remember who they are, and don't do a deal with them in the future. If you have somebody who is short fighters, throws their hands up and thinks this fight is gone, where is your creativity? What in a million years would have led you to Belal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards? And I only bring that to you because it's the most recent match that we have seen. But what would have led you strategically to telling me those two were going to match up? Well, absolutely nothing. I know the answer to that. I know it was a short notice fight. I know that's how that got put together. I know all of these things. But I also know the day that Daniel Cormier took on Anderson Silva, they had 48 hours to put that fight together. 48, that sounds like a mega fight, doesn't it? If you're a new fan or a casual fan, you might not have known that Cormier fought Anderson Silva. So now that I brought that to your attention, don't you go, oh my goodness, that is a mega fight. Cormier's a heavyweight. Anderson Silva was a middleweight. How did they possibly get these two together? Well, Cormier was doing a stint down at 205 pounds in between his heavyweight runs. Jon Jones popped for steroids the first or second or third time. And it's fight week. So they call up Anderson Silva, who I don't even know is in the country. By the way, got on an airplane and come and did the match. I only share with you. If you think you can't throw together a mega match on short notice, yes, there is a boilerplate. Yes, there is a preference. And yes, it is two winners. And yes, it is a 10-week buildup. And yes, there is a media tour. There's training camps. I get those things. That's a default. Boxing has to go by that. But boxing also does 1 to 2 big fights a year. MMA does a big fight every single weekend. Every single weekend and sometimes twice. And with the steam that's building around Bellator's Grand Prix, I think you're about to get treated more to the twice. But my point still is, you can't do things perfect when you're doing it every single week. You can't. You now have to do things quickly. So to put some of these mega fights together is absolutely possible. Now, Jon has to return to 205, as I see it. In my opinion, Izzy versus Jones was always problematic at heavyweight. In my opinion. But that fight is far from dead, and the run of Jon Jones is highly questionable. Jon's a human being like anybody else. Father Time's things are going to catch him. I only bring that to you because it's one of these things where don't be closed-minded to that idea, and also don't point your finger at Adesanya and act like he doesn't know what he's doing. Adesanya, when I'm not present, is the smartest guy in the room. When it comes to MMA, psychology, and planning and prepping steps ahead for your own career, don't second guess Adesanya. And if you're going to suffer a disappointment as a fan because you don't think that you're going to get that match, that's only because your mind naturally defaulted to step one. You have a short-term memory on how Leon and Blahal ever got together. By the way, it looks like Leon and Blahal are about to do it again. Just by example. I mean, they're talking about possibly rematching that match. Things happen in this sport. Be ready. Make your call out. Never back down, never change your mind, and never say sorry.